So I know I don't know if we've done too many deals over the years. I know we've communicated several times throughout the years on
Sure.
different bin store trucks. And I know a little bit about you and about your business. But from what I understand, you've got 3 locations now, all in Ohio. Is that correct? Or
That is correct,
have we
yes.
grown bigger than 3 since I looked? Awesome. So
No, we're
what I
still
want to
sitting at
start with and
3.
kind of my goal, still sitting at 3. Cool. So my goal for our conversation is I want to get, your thoughts. Well, your, opinion on how you got started. I want you to tell people your story, number one, right? I want to go into your opinion on how inventory has been affected in liquidation over the last couple of years. I want to give people that are just starting out the most information as possible about what to look out for, about what to kind of forecast and foresee. A lot of things, a lot of costs we don't see when we think of a bin store. We think really simple. It's a big room full of bins. We dump shit in there and we sell it and we go. And then people open up these stores. We're seeing them, across the country. Like they're closing down very, very quickly and very often. So it's clear to me that a lot of people jump in feet first without, or head first, I should say, without knowing all of the kind of ins and outs. Um, but to get started, introduce yourself. I know you've got Bin Mania, and then tell us when you got started and how you got started, especially just in liquidation in general, and then we'll dive into the bin stores.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I own Bin Mania. We started out in 2018, so almost 8 years ago now, I believe. November will be 8 years actually. It's a long,
Wow.
long, long time.
Yeah.
But pretty much the way I got started was very unique. So I started buying pallets off of a pallet house, and then from there started selling out of my garage. Then from there started selling on a local flea market. And then I got a job with a local liquidator in my town called Katie's Discount Warehouse. They are still around. Absolute great place. But I got a job working with him, learning more about the liquidation world, learning more in depth into all of this. And then October of 2018, well, he fired me pretty much. And I'm like, okay, but I'm glad he did. Because when he fired me, that gave me the motivation to do something different because here I am, I do a lot of thinking in my cars, right? I'm a big gearhead, love cars. So here I am just driving around town and I'm thinking, man, I really don't want to go work for somebody else. This is so boring. I hate every aspect of working for somebody. So I went to the guy I was buying pallets off of and I said, look, this is what I want to do. This is what I need to do. And I asked him for $13,000, 10,000 to start, 3,000 to pay my bills. And he said, cool, here you go. Gave me all the money and said, the only thing I asked, I'm your number one supplier for at least your first year. And I said, okay. He said, if you make it, pay me back. If you don't pay me back. It's not a big deal. And I was like, whoa, opportunity of a lifetime right here. Opportunity of a lifetime, right? So I took that opportunity. It did cost me my first marriage, 100% cost me my first marriage, but it was worth it because she wanted me to have a 9 to 5 and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. She was worried about the stability of the income. So cost me my first marriage, but 100% worth it because right when I got that money, I found a landlord willing to work with me at the $1,200 for 1,200 a month for like 3,800 square foot building, and it was in a shopping center, back of the road type shopping center. So it wasn't like an A grade shopping center with national chains in it. But the one key factor that I do contribute to a lot of my success is it had a coffee shop right next door. So everybody's going to the coffee shop already, right? It's a little local, well-known coffee shop. Everybody's going to it. So they would go to there, then they would come in and they would search and see what I'm all about, right? Absolutely fantastic. Once people started figuring out what I was all about, then they started coming. That grew from that little 3,800 square foot store to my first 14,000 square foot store to then moving the 3,800 square foot store into a 12,000 square foot store. And then last year opening up our biggest one yet of 21,000 square feet and still growing to this day. But yeah, that's the 5 second version of it.
I heard you tell that story before, and I think I just love stories like that where you take $13,000 and you get to build it and what you built it today, which is huge. I can relate to the first marriage thing. It takes a special person to be down with an entrepreneur. We're not built the same. That 9 to 5, there's still days I don't say I dream about it, but I definitely wonder what that's like to clock out at 5, go home and not give a shit about
Yep.
how anything else is
Yep.
going at the company. But instead, I don't have that. I'm getting calls at 1 o'clock for some crap that it really isn't important. So
100%.
3,800 square feet is where we started. Did we immediately start with bins, or did we start with, traditional liquidation resale or straight bins?
So I started straight bins, but I did a little bit different. We had different marked price bins, so 10, 5, 3, 2, and 1 in the
Yep.
building at the time. But I think about a month in, I was like, "This is too much work. This is just insane." Because you'd have to have someone back there constantly just stickering everything, just sticker, 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 and it's like,
Yeah.
"Whoo, this is becoming crazy." And it was just too much labor. So then we
Yeah.
switched to the falling price model. And what's really crazy, my very first day used to be $5.
Yep.
Almost unheard of anymore.
No. So jumping ahead a little bit, you started off at 5. What is today's starting price to
So
compare?
today is $9 for 1 more week, and then we're going to up it to 11.
Up to 11, okay. Now, are you upping it, is it mainly, I mean, it's just cost of inventory, right? Like, that's the reason cost of goods through the roof are just
So
up.
it's multiple different reasons, right? Not only for the cost of inventory, because you can't if you stay too low, you can't bring the right inventory that excites the customer, which is
Yep,
getting harder and harder by day to do at, a $9 rate. It's just almost becoming impossible, right?
yeah,
So it's not only cost of goods that's doing it, but it's also like you know, commercial real estate isn't immune to rising costs, right? Because yes, your rent may be, set in stone for the next 5 years, but the one thing that's not, and I have one store that actually has this on their lease, is what's called triple net or CAM, right? The operating expenses of that the landlord's going to put back on their tenants. That can fluctuate between every single year. And we've seen that increase over the last 2 years. Our heating bill went up, gosh, probably double this year than what it was last year. I mean, we're seeing $2,000 a month just to heat one store. I'm
yeah,
like, this is getting wild, right? And then also on top of that, employees, they need more money so that way they can meet their basic needs. So we have to be able to pay more. And we can't do that at nine. It's just impossible. And
yeah,
the only way that I can see staying at nine is if someone came in and you sold about 60 to 70% of your load at $9, right?
no,
Let's be real, that's not gonna happen. It's just not. No, with the way the loads are today, with everything that goes on, nobody's going to buy 60 to 70% of your load at $9. It's just not gonna happen.
no,
So, that's where I'm like, "Okay, what's the magic number?" Because I was debating between 10 and 12, and I was like, "Well, 12 will allow me to do more." But I was like, I'm gonna split the difference with the customers, I'm gonna go 11, right? That 11's going to allow us to do funner things with the customers is which I really like. It's going to allow me to, put some higher end items in the bins, take the loss just to build the excitement. It's going to allow me to, do fun things like $50 shopping sprees if people are in line. It's going to allow us to do more than what we're doing now because right now we have to be so budget friendly because everything has to be blah 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 blah. And it's so tight and so tight squeezed
100%.
I don't see a future in bin stores below 10. I don't. Not going
Yeah.
forward. I can't see it. I can't see it going
No,
forward.
it's tough, especially with, I mean, and the funny thing is you just started on so many of the questions that I had, and one of, um there was several, and it's kinda crazy. I mean, back to um where do I wanna go from there? The I wanna stick with the cost of inventory right this minute. I think that's a really important one for a lot of people in determining what your price model is. From today back up from when you started, what's the difference in cost to you? First of all, what do you think? How has pricing increased? Because we get a lot of and we sold a lot of the bin loads, and the the initial complaint's always, well, the cost is going up. And if you look back, I mean, the cost has definitely increased, but it's more of like how, in my opinion, how the loads have been processed, even from Amazon before it even gets to, the guys processing
Right.
loads and selling processed trucks. Amazon themselves has been, sorting their loads differently and getting them, to us. So even the guys buying them direct to
So
holders.
yeah, so you hit on two very valuable points right there, right? One of the things that I've seen since 2018 till now is 2018 you could buy a 7 foot tall Gaylord for like $400 and it was just filled with thousands of things and it was amazing goodies all the way almost all the way through the whole entire thing. So it was great. You could cut open that pallet, let everything fall into the bins, triple your money on it and move on with life very easily, right? You could do that with almost every retailer. Now, one of the things though that has really, skyrocketed since then that also affects these prices is technology, right? We got better software now that can scan that can scan these products and tell Amazon or whatever retailer we're looking at, where should this be going? How can they get it there? And what's the best way to sell this to get the highest ROI out of it, right?
Yep.
So that comes back and now hurts us in the bin store game because now you're at a percentage of retail instead of just buying these loads flat rated. So now when we see these percentage of retail, it's like, okay, inflation hits us hard like it has over the past 3 years, right? Inflation starts hitting us hard. Well, our percentage might not have gone up, but the load cost has gone up because that item's gone up.
Yep.
Now the percentage is more and it kills us, right? Because we're sitting at, oh, well, this item was 2 years ago $5, now it's $10. So now you're 10%, 11%, whatever you're paying cost wise for this load is
Yep.
now higher because that item went up. Well, in a bin store, we can't adjust to it. In a
Yeah.
typical discount store, you easily adjust to it because it's already factored in because you're doing 55% of the current retail value, right?
Yep.
So it fluctuates with it. But with the bin store, it doesn't. Like, okay, cost went up, but now I can't adjust because I'm stuck at 7 or I'm stuck at 9 or whatever it is. So that's really where I see a lot of the cost coming from. It's Amazon, Target, all these other major retailers are getting better and better and better of figuring out where this stuff needs to go so they get the biggest return on their returns pretty much, and how do they get it to us as the store owner or to their contract holders the most efficient way. And then the contract holders are starting to learn more and more as technology gets better, and they're like, hey, we could get a lot of return off of this too. So they're starting to process a little bit different in the way they handle things too. So you got it on both ends, right? You got it from whoever the contract holder is, then you also got it from the retailer themselves because they're sitting there and they're like, if make a lot of Legos, I can get 40 to 50% return on this lot overnight. So there's no reason for them to throw it into an unmanifested load and give it to us for $1 anymore. It doesn't make sense. And I can't say I blame them. I can't because I mean it makes sense for their bottom line. If I can get a 50% return based off of $1, I'm going to do that. So I'm seeing a lot more manifested loads on the market. I'm seeing those manifested loads go up because of the fact that, well, not because the percentage rates have gone up a lot. I mean, they have. Don't get me wrong, they have, but they haven't gone up so much where it's like, a 20% increase or something like that. But they've gone up to a point to where it's causing these loads to skyrocket all the way through because of inflation. And then on top of that, we got to factor in the shipping too.
Yep.
The
Shipping costs have
shipping,
gone up. I mean, just today, we pull out of Miami. We used to pull out of Miami. I mean, I did the math last year. I looked. We're paying $800, and we had to pick it up. Doesn't matter, but like it was $1,500 today. The same lane, the same broker, twice as much, and that's something to factor into.
right?
And I don't see that getting a whole lot better. To your point,
Not
these
anytime soon.
retailers and the processors are going to get, it's their business. Their bottom line's affected. So they're going to continue to get better. You'll start, we started seeing already Amazon as, you know, you see the new used like new product. They're going to do more and more of that. They're going to try to get their bottom line. They're protecting it as best they can. And that's going to affect us as the bin store owners across the country. The better Amazon gets, the better the processors have to get because they're affected. And then the bin store guys buying the processed loads are the last ones on the food chain. And so you've got to get creative. Um, to be profitable. And so one of my other questions, you mentioned FC a few times. For those that, watching that don't necessarily know, FC stands for fulfillment center, and it's primarily the new product from Amazon that didn't sell through, that just got quote pulled off the shelves. I compare it to shelf pull product if you were buying Target. Are you running FC through all of your bins, or are you mixing it with anything else?
So we have a unique mix. I don't run FC. I used to pull every single load and have the flow for CMH1 out of Etna, Ohio. The FC got wildly unprofitable very quickly because when I first started, I ran that facility for about a year and 4 months, 5 months. And the problem was when we first started with that facility, we were at 11 to $12,000 a load, which was a great price. Then it went up to 16, which still wasn't bad. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
16,000 the loads are worth it. But then overnight, it went from 16 to 30,000 plus dollars every single load, and they were pushing 3 to 4 of them every single week.
Yeah.
And they weren't even like high-end electronics or something on these that was causing them to hit that high, right? Because if they're pushing high-end electronics at $30,000 load, I'd be in it all day long.
Yeah.
No, it was things like, here's 5,000 Amazon branded Advil, or here's 5,000 mascara sticks, or here's, and each load has 30,000 plus units on it, but it's all the same SKU, it's all the same stuff. And I'm like, this isn't profitable anymore. So we've actually had to get more creative when it comes to our sourcing, because right now we're using we're using Amazon LPN because that
Uh-huh.
gives you the good stuff for your higher dollar days. Then we're
Yeah.
using like Target product, like Target high piece counter, anything like that. And then from there, we're looking at unique ways. Like we've actually been mixing in, when we can get them, Books a Million, the retailer
Okay.
Books a Million loads, and then we've been getting some 3PL low end stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to get loads that hit every single spending level, right? Because like Target's going to get, not Target, but Amazon's going to get your 11, $8 day on average. Then you're going to have your Target that's going to hit your 6 and $4 day and your $3 day. And then you're going to need the stuff to hit at 2 and 1, right? And that's where the cheap, pretty much Chinese stuff comes into play, right? You
Yeah.
throw that into the bins too. You make this mix and it helps give you something for everyone. Now, will the Target and will the Chinese have some stuff that will sell at 11 and 8? Of course, all day long. But your mass majority is going to come from that Amazon LPN
Yeah.
for those.
What do you think when you blend it? Because I mean, I've told people that from the jump, right? Back when FC was still good, I encourage people, to blend your product. If you can get people to spend $8 on FC product, you should be pushing that as hard as you can. In the beginning, LPN was still super cheap. Everybody was just dumping straight LPN. They got their customers kind of used to like the cream of the crop for $5 and $6. Trying to train them, to also buy I say cheap crap. It's still good stuff at that price point is more difficult. So I always encourage people to open your store with a blend. But what does that do for your cost? What do you think when you've made that blend? Do you know what your average cost per unit is across the
So we don't necessarily track it average cost per unit, only because it's next to impossible, right? We can break down the average cost per unit per load, but let's face it, when you're refilling your stores, you're not going to sit there and count every single unit you throw into it. So the way we track that is we track, okay, how many pallets did we throw in and what's the cost per pallet off of that truck, right? So if the truck costs $15,000, we have 26 pallets on it, we would divide it by 26 and we'd put that in there, right? And that's how we're able to calculate exactly how much profit we're bringing off of these loads, is because we're able to know, okay, boom, we're here at, we're at 9,000, we returned 18,000 this week, so we had 100% return on the money this
Yeah.
week. So that's how we track it. We track it by pallet and by
Count your
pallet growth.
pallets. How many pallets does it cost to fill your bins across the board? You spent $12,000 filling your bins this week. You ran $30,000 of gross profit, or your gross sales, your gross profit would then be the difference. You're not
Correct.
doing it on a per piece. But it leads me to my next question is, and you kind of brought it up. What percentage? Well, let me ask this. Let me stop. What is your breakdown? How does your day? How does your week look? What day of the week you start on? Obviously, we're going to an $11 start. What day of the week do you end on? And when the week's over, what's that final day look like?
So we start our on Fridays and we go till Thursday. So it's Friday till Thursday, right?
Okay.
By
So you're running full
Thursday.
7 days.
Yeah, yeah. So we try to run it all the way through. It's 2 of our stores are closed on Sundays. We have one that's open on Sundays because 'cause we're testing Sundays right now to see if it's worth being open. So far,
Uh-huh.
the data's saying yes. So once we get that Sunday data in, we're going to probably open all 3 stores on Sundays. But
Okay.
we go Friday to Thursday. We don't close for a refill day ever. Pretty much we just close early on Thursdays at 5 o'clock, and then we just balls to the wall, get these
Yeah.
things refilled for the next day because we're hybrid, right? So our 100% of our store isn't all bins. We don't need to refill 200 bins.
Yeah.
So that's how we run it. Now, when it comes to like sales wise, Friday's always going to be your highest day.
Yeah.
Thursday is going to be your lowest day, right? Because if you're sitting there on Thursday and you have enough items to where you're still able to run a $7,000 Thursday and you only have as much business as we do, we only have like maybe 25 to 30 per store, depending. But
Okay.
if you're if you're hitting that, then you're most likely putting out too much inventory. We scrutinize our inventory so closely because inventory is the hardest thing to get, but it's also your biggest expense. So we scrutinize the inventory like crazy because if we know that we're digging out 1 pallet a week, because we don't leave anything float for the next week. We don't marry our inventory. We just want to get rid of it.
Yep.
So we put them in grab boxes at the end of the week, right? Everything that's left over
It
goes
doesn't
into a
tell you
grab
what in,
box.
like, is it, like, mystery box, or can they see what's in it? Or you
No,
just tell them it's a crap
it's a
box?
mystery box. We call them
Okay.
grab boxes because we also sell mystery boxes from like Amazon, stuff like that. So
Differentiate, you know.
so we call them grab boxes, right? We'll reuse a coffin box. We'll fill it up with bin leftovers. We'll sell it for 30 bucks. And we
Yeah.
always sell them at the end of the week. But if we see that we're able to make 1 or 2 pallets worth of grab boxes, then that tells us right then and there, hey, we can drop a pallet and still have enough product to run the numbers we're having
Yeah.
and be more profitable because now we're saving ourselves $500 to $800 depending on what pallet we drop. So we monitor that very, very, very closely, right? Because quite frankly, if you run your numbers right, you should be profitable. Ideally, day two, but that doesn't always happen. It's actually happening a lot less recently, especially with gas prices going through the roof and all that. Day three, you should be profitable. Day three, sometime through day three, with realistic, you should be profitable. So then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday should all just be buttered. Should all just be your profits. And you don't need, and that's what I tell everybody is you don't need to run a $7,000 Thursday to be profitable. You just don't need it. If you're banking on Thursdays to be profitable, you're probably throwing too much inventory out. Your inventory cost is too high. You need to look at your inventory and see why am I profitable why do I have to wait till Thursday to even break any type of money, right? Yeah. Well, it's mainly because you're throwing out too much product or you're starting your prices too high or you're just not mixing the loads properly. It's one of those three things is probably where it's at because if your prices are too high, nobody's going to buy it. They're
No.
just not. And it's going to wait till a lower dollar day. If your load just isn't good quality, like if you're throwing out, all FC and it's SKU after SKU after SKU of the same stuff, nobody's going to buy it. So then you're going to wait. So that's what I say is there's usually one of three issues on why you're banking on Thursdays for any type of profit whatsoever. I mean,
Yeah.
because we can run $3,000 on a Thursday out of the bins, and it's just $3,000
What
worth
day is
of
it, a
profit.
dollar day or a 50-cent day for you guys?
Dollar. We don't drop to 50 cents anymore. Now,
Oh, wow.
we used to do 50 cents, but we got rid of it because quite frankly, I mean, my cashiers were up there, they would count 1,000 items and we would make 500 bucks. I'm like, this is stupid. Why am
Yeah.
I opening the door, spending overhead and stuff for my cashiers to be stressed out to do $1,000 worth of items or, maybe $1,000 in the till because we moved 1,000 items. I was like, I can throw these in the grab boxes, make just as much money by making them in the grab boxes and not having the labor behind it, right? I don't have the cashier stressing herself out. I don't have any of that. And it also allows me to extend the higher dollar days by a day, right? So now instead of, having to figure out how to crunch a 50-cent day in there, now I'm crunching in I don't now I'm only crunched in the dollar day, so I don't have to drop as quick, which
Yeah.
also helps with your bottom line. I don't think 50-cent days are really needed. I
Yeah.
don't. I think that if you just do the mystery boxes or the grab boxes, and again, if you do the grab boxes, you need to be transparent with your customers. Hey, these are bin leftovers. That's what they are. That's why it's
Yeah.
cheap. And we do it based on box though. So we have like a small box for 10, a medium box for 20, and then the large box for 30. What we have in stock just depends on whatever heck box we have available that week.
Yeah. You'd be
So
surprised, like, when we've done bin stores in the past. Um, and we always found at least one of our, like, wholesale clients that was local that would come by and wanna buy a pallet of the leftovers for, 1, 2, $300 depending on the week. So, there's always a place, there's always a home for those leftovers. You don't I cringe when people tell me, "I just throw mine away," and I'm like, "Why?" It's not a lot of money left on
right,
the table, but it's $300 I pay for 2 guys' labor, like, for the day,
right.
on,
I
the you're in.
Right, I don't think it should ever be thrown away. I don't. I really don't because you're just throwing away money at that point.
You know?
And also I've also learned that throwing away your product also causes a lot of problems with the landlord. And when I say that is because dumpster divers. Dumpster divers
Mm,
come through and they eat those bins, they eat that trash can alive. And then they throw stuff everywhere and then landlords get mad at you and then you have to spend labor dollars cleaning up the trash outside. And it's
yeah,
like, okay, now I'm stuck paying this guy, an hour's worth of labor to literally clean up the trash that I'm making $0 on when I
yeah,
could have just threw all this into a grab box or whatever, made 30 bucks on it and moved on, right?
yeah,
And not worry about those type of guys. And the cool thing about the grab boxes too is sometimes the customers will open it up, they'll pay for the box, they'll open it up, and then they'll just hand it right back to us and say, I just wanted to open it. And I'm like, "Okay." So then we just
Okay, I
take
need
that
I'm gonna
box.
tape it back up, and I'm gonna do it
Yeah.
again.
And I'm like, "Hey, free money. Let's go." Right? And then there's also a lot of, like, people who work with special needs who come in and buy them because they're like, they just love to open them. They'll open them. 'em, they'll throw the stuff everywhere, they'll have a blast, and then
Yeah.
we throw it all away, and I'm like, "Cool." I'm happy that we can bring that
Yeah,
excitement to them, right? So there's a lot of different ways to handle those leftovers that can be increasing to your bottom line than just, toss it. One thing you don't wanna do, though, is leave it in your bins.
yeah.
Never leave it in your bins. Make sure to always clear out those bins 100% every single week. Doesn't matter. Whether you made profit that week or not, you need to move that item because trying to pull a dollar out of that will actually cost you $2 because they're going to be like, the customer going to come in and say, "Oh, I seen this last week. This place just recycles their
They're
own
gonna know
stuff."
it.
And then they're
We
going
get
to
that a
notice.
lot. Yeah, we get that a lot with, stores that are, especially when you start to struggle. You have a couple weeks where you've struggled and guys are going, "Well, I gotta make it work. I gotta stretch my product. I gotta leave some of it in there to keep my bins full." I think one this is a really, like, you might have a different feeling, but one tip that I tell people is to stretch your inventory, don't build your bins 2 feet deep. I see that a lot where bins get built to be super, super deep because they wanna hold more product. They assume if I put more product, like you said, out on the floor, I'm gonna sell through more, and that's not really the case. In my experience, we've noticed that when we in the past, pre-COVID, we built some pretty deep bins. It was costing we could fit a whole 5-foot Gaylord in a 4 by 8 bin, but recently, when I look at bins, I want a nice shallow bin. 12 inches is my sweet spot because the bin looks really, really full, but it's not super full. They can actually buy through all of that product, without it costing an arm and a leg. And so for especially bigger stores or medium-sized stores, it's a cheaper way to fill your bin. You can always restock. I don't That was another question I had for you is restocking. You can always restock if you sell through, but I would rather have to restock than have to throw away half of what I put out because then people, they dig. They they love to dig. I love, watching customers do it, but they dig, they open crap up, they put it back, they damage your product in the process. So one, inexpensive way to stretch the product is just, build a shallower bin.
Right.
Uh,
I would agree with you that there's a fine line between too deep and too shallow, right? Because like a lot of bin stores I've gone to almost a table method at this point where it just looks like a table with a lip, and it's like, dude, that's not even a bin. That's a table. You're too
yeah,
shallow. And then you go to another bin store where it's so freaking deep that it's just too deep, right? Because again, like you said, they're going to tear up the product. Then they sit there and they just make it all a mess, and it just looks like you have a mess, right? But if you take that bin and you get it to that right size, now you made it more shoppable too. Because like, yeah, you stack it two feet high against the bins, right? Now all of a sudden you're sitting there and Becky Sue's trying to dig through it, but everything keeps falling on the floor. And then she has to
exactly.
keep trying to pick it up. She gets frustrated. She doesn't like these fairs. She wants to leave, right? So like our bins, we designed them with they have a lip on every single bin. They're all custom made to us, and they have a lip on the end. So that way, when somebody's picking something, they see something they might want, they just set it on the lip right beside them, and then they can keep digging. Or if you have someone who gets really tired, but they still want to dig, they
They
can
can
lean. They can
I
lean
like
on the bin too, and they can sit there because what I tell a lot of people is your bin's your brand. That bin is your brand. That's what customers are going to be interacting with the most inside your store. So you want it to be nice, right? It's just like a shopping cart. You don't want a shopping cart with wheels that don't move. Well, you don't
yeah,
want a bin that's uncomfortable to shop in, right? So you make it as convenient as possible for those customers to use those bins. You also height matters on the bins too, right? You don't want to go too high because then it's harder for people who are vertically challenged like me.
yeah,
It's harder, right? But you don't want to go too low because then it hurts too much to shop it. So everything has to be down to pretty much a science at the end of the day is how deep you go with the bins, how high do you go in the bins, how do you make the bins, and how do you work the bins, right? And it's also like people don't think about it too. And it's one thing I learned in my earlier days is cleanliness, right? Because if you take the side of the bin and you put pieces of wood all the way down to the floor, then you're gonna have stuff that's going to get scooted underneath the bin and you're never gonna get it cleaned out. It's just always gonna be dirty 24/7. But if you take that only halfway down the bin, you still can create a higher end look. But at the end of the day, you now have easy access for your employees to clean underneath the bins. So there's a lot of different science that needs to go through with it. Like ours, every single one of them has wheels so they can be moved except for the ones that are on the wall. We have the lips on them. They're all stained to a nice wood look. So there's different ways to approach it.
Yeah. Now, I agree. I in fact, I absolutely love this now, like the resting. I think that's just a genius idea. Um, Now, to back up a second, I'm a brand new bin store, or I'm debating opening a brand new bin store. I'm on a limited budget. We're opening a bin store, and it's a hybrid bin store. It's a different model than a lot of people are doing, and I'll go into that later. But we bought bins, we bought clothing racks, and we were able to fill all of our store as far as like fixtures for under $3,000. One of my suggestions for new stores is to go find a store that's closing and buy their bins or buy their fixtures, because I've built them. I've opened stores where we've built the bins ourselves, and for me to build 20 bins today, 4 by 8, labor included, I'm probably looking close to 250 a bin, at least in our area, by the time I pay my contractors, by the time I pay material cost. So my suggestion, and I don't know if you'd agree, like at new stores, I think what you said is super important. Once you're established, you have the capital to go and reinvest in yourself and build your brand. In the beginning, did you build the bins yourself as nice as you're saying now, or did you go a cheaper method and then build your way up to, what you have today across the board?
So, we definitely had the lip and everything like that, but it was only on the bins down our wall,
Uh-huh.
and those were literally made out of plywood and pallets.
Yeah.
Nothing special, and it and
Yeah.
it and it worked. We built them ourselves, a friend and I did, but then we hopped on, a website there, and we got these, like, shallow, like, rolly bin things that were $130 a piece, put them on the floor, and that's how we started. It wasn't nearly as nice as it is today. They're not great necessarily for the bins because they didn't have, like, solid sides, so, like, stuff would fall out onto the floor every once in a while, things like that. But other than that, though, they work just fine. So we didn't start with, fancy bins that we have now. We started with literally a pallet wood built bin and then these little rollers that we got online for like $130 each.
Yeah. I like it. People just starting out. We were talking a little bit about landlords and leases and all that stuff. Before we get more into that, I want to talk about location. Um, what kind of location are your stores in? How do you feel? Um, how important do you think street access is or location is? Does location really matter to the bin store concept, or will people find the good deal? If you have a good deal, if you have good prices, if you have good product, will they find you wherever you are? And how important is it to pay a premium for, I guess, if you're renting a space, how important is it to pay a premium for space versus save that money and maybe go somewhere a little farther off the beaten path?
Well, so in that particular assets, there's a win for everybody always, right? My particular stores are in well, one of them's in grade A shopping center. It has a giant eagle in it. It has an AutoZone in it. It has a Holiday Hair, I believe it's called. It has a Petco in it. It has IHOP in front of it, Chipotle right down the road, Fazoli's right down the road. So all kinds of national brands inside the
Yeah.
shopping center, right? I will go that route before I go to a grade C or a backyard
Uh-huh.
all day long. Why? Because it's a catch 22. If you go back door, now you have to do twice as much work to try to get people to know where you're at, right? Twice as much work. And people who are driving by you might not stop because they don't know your name. They don't know who you are. You have to give them a reason to stop. So, like with me, the coffee shop was the reason they stopped. And then they came next door and like, "Oh my god, this place is amazing. We have all these great deals." And then the word spread. So I didn't have to work as hard, right? Got it for $1,200 a month back then. It was a great
Yeah.
deal. No triple net, no cam, no nothing. It was $1,200 a month. It's fantastic. But they had a reason to stop, right? And I always look at dollar stores on this question, right? Because back in the day, yeah, a dollar store, people would hunt them out and go to them. But then the market got saturated with it. And people were like, well, I don't need to go to the one in the boondocks anymore because there's one on the corner. And we're
Yeah.
starting to see more and more discount stores, more and more bin stores pop up. And as that happens, there's less reason for people to travel unless you have better product than the next. How many weeks are you going to have the better product, right? Where
Yeah.
people find it's worth it. And as gas gets more expensive too, they're not going to be willing to drive because I mean, they might have been willing to drive an hour to you a year ago when gas was $3 a gallon, but now it's 5. They might think, well, it's not really worth spending that much in gas to go there anymore. So I
Yeah.
always say find your medium, right? You don't have to be in grade A, but you don't want to be in boondocks. You don't want to be way out into a random warehouse situation to where Nobody knows you're out there, right? Find the sweet spot. Like our 21,000 square foot store, we opened it up inside of a mall, right?
Uh-huh.
The mall isn't grade A. It doesn't have, super ton of foot traffic, but it's also not like dead, right?
Yeah.
We're right next to a movie theater. We're right across from the food court. The food court still has four different places in it. It still has a sit down restaurant in this mall. TJ Maxx, JC Penney's, Five Below, Dunham Sports, Planet Fitness, Spencer's Gifts are all the name brands that are still in this mall. So they still have name brands. They still have reasons for people to stop and for people to come into this mall. We were just a kind of like a gift to the mall, right? Because we bring in people, but yet people are going to find us because they're at the mall anyways,
Yeah.
right? So it's a little bit of both. So I always say you don't want to be in the boondocks, you don't need to be in grade A, but you need to find somewhere where you can work. And when it comes to trying to find that space, though, again, this might go on to one of your other questions, though.
Good. I like it.
What's the win for you and what's the win for the landlord, right? There's always a win for each one. And
Yeah.
as you grow, you can find those wins, right? Landlords are starving for foot traffic today. That is what they are starving for. So you can show them that you can bring them foot traffic. You do that, great. It becomes easier the more established you get to do that. But when you're first starting out, there's a win for somebody. There's always a win. You got to get creative. Get creative on it, right? If you want to be bin stores, it sucks, but bin stores are usually easier to put up. The hybrid store is a little harder, but it's not like, oh my God, you're spending 2 to 3 years on this. So if you're like, hey, I want this store in this shopping center, but I can't pay you market rent right now. But do your research. You know it's been empty for 8 years. You're like, this store has been empty since this day. This is what I want to do. I want to pay you this amount of money, but I understand that you can't lock up this space for it. So if you just give me a 90-day clause in this lease, meaning that if you find someone who's willing to pay you market rent, you give me 90-day rent notice that I'm going to have to get out of this space, I will sign that lease all day long because, you're starting out. You don't have any power behind you. You don't have, financials you can show the landlord. You don't have proof of the foot traffic. The only thing you can give the landlord right now is money. And one thing you can also do to help that, let's say you don't want to sign the 90-day clause, right? Let that space, you don't want to sign that 90-day clause. Cool. So put your money where your mouth is for that landlord, right? At the end of the day. Okay, landlord, I'm going to pay you this amount of rent, but if I break over this amount of revenue in a year, I pay you so much on that above break, right? I'm going to pay you 10 to 20% of my sales above that, or whatever it would be, whatever you guys deemed reasonable. And now you're revenue sharing with that landlord. And landlords love revenue share, right? Because now they're like, okay, if he really does do really, really well in my shopping center, I'm going to get a piece of that pie. And that's what I want because they're not going to give you a grade A space that they know they can go get, $14, $15 a square foot off of it for $4 or $5 a square. It's just not going to happen. There has to be a win for the landlord at the end of the day. It's not just, look, your space is filled. Great. But now that the space is filled for a 5-year lease or a 3-year lease or whatever, I can't rent it out for somebody who wants that for 3 years. So if those next 3 years, if someone comes knocking on my door that's willing to pay this rent, I can't do it. But if you give them an out, but on the flip side of that, though, you can also give yourself an out. You can
Yeah.
say, hey, you get a 90 days, I get a 90 days. Let's come together. So if your business tanks and you don't do well, you're safe. You don't have
Yeah.
to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it, especially if you have to sign a personal guarantee on that lease. Now you have an exit. You're like, okay, well, my business is tanking. I only have to be here for 3 more months and pay this rent for 3 more months.
Yeah.
Life is a lot better than if I had to pay this lease for another 3 years, right? Revenue sharing is what really helps them out. Revenue sharing is 100% great for you and the landlord because hey, if I don't hit $1 million this year, I don't have to pay this high rent. I still have the low rent. I can stay afloat, blah, 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 blah. You just have to be willing to share your financials with your landlord, which most landlords will want anyways because you're
Most
taking a pretty
100%.
big
Everybody
stake.
gonna want them. So that's one thing we do, outside of liquidation, we're really heavy in real estate. So on the flip side, as being a landlord, looking at I see it from both sides. I have been a tenant in, some spaces that we got good deals on because of the condition they were in. As a landlord, the bin store model is definitely a model that I've rented to a couple bin stores in the past, and they're not my favorite because I know the business, and it's definitely one where you want to I like how you put it, you wanna give yourself a little bit of an out, I think, because you don't know until you sign the lease and you run your business for 6 months, especially the bin stores, how they're gonna do. And I know we do it on all of ours, but that personal guarantee is a big deal. And a lot of commercial landlords, and we're not one of them. We typically work with smaller lease times, but a lot of 5-year leases are common in commercial. And a lot of people are very quick to sign the lease, not really understanding what this means if my business fails in 6 months. So I think, you made a good point. Go out and find some spaces where the landlords might be struggling, where you can help them. Maybe you're coming in and you're filling a space for a short period of time. Maybe you're coming in and you're doing uh, you're fixing up the space a little bit. Sometimes these buildings, since they sit for so long, landlords don't want to put money into it, which I'll never understand. But, Joe Blow comes on and say, "Hey man, I want some free rent. I'll do some improvements to the building while I'm in here."
So that's
Um,
I actually have a great story behind that, right? So, when we are looking to move my Heath store, I wanted to move into the shopping center, but the rent was just way out of our league at the point. I mean, I just wouldn't I would never pay a landlord that much. I don't care where the property is. I was like, "You guys are
yeah,
dumb." They wanted $19 a square foot at the time plus triple net came. I'm like, "You guys, no." So, it was an old Big Lots store that they ended up once Big Lots left the center, they moved, like, 5 doors down to the old Toys R Us, but once Big Lots left, they split it in 3. They had a thrift store on one end of it that benefits the Humane Society, then Spectrum was on the other side, and so it left this, like, tunnel L-shaped space in the middle. It was weird, but I was like, "Ooh, this would be perfect because we can do all of our shelves down here, and then off to this end here, we can put all of our bins. It's perfect," right? So I saw this opportunity. Problem was, it had no bathrooms. It had no HVAC units in it. The electricity was not up to date like it should have been. Nothing was done to the space. It was literally a blank canvas.
yeah,
Well, I went to the landlord at the time talking to her about it. Like, well, here's the thing. We're selling this property in 2 years. It's going to be worth the same amount whether that space is occupied or not. So we're not putting a dime into that space. And I said, okay, if you're selling it, whatever I sign of this lease, the next guy has to deal with. So let's do something crazy. So like, okay, what are you doing? It's like, I'm gonna put every dollar into this space. I'm gonna build out this space for you. But in return, you're gonna give me 2 years free rent on top of it, 2 years free rent, plus you're going to give me a you're gonna give me below market rate rent. We ended up, I forget the exact square footage at this point, but the rent's stupid cheap. No
yeah.
triple net, no CAM. It's gonna be a gross lease. And on top of that, you're gonna give me an automatic renewal if I want it after 6 years of being here. And they're like, done, go for it.
They
So
don't
we
have to deal.
so we signed that lease, and I'm like, "Okay, cool." Granted, I had to put almost 200,000 into the space to get everything going. That's it with inventory, with shelving, with putting in the new heating systems, doing the electrical work, getting the blueprints made, all that stuff. So they gotta build out space because of it. I got free rent for 2 years, which would have cost me about $400,000,
Yeah.
and I got below market rate for the last remainder of 4 years on that lease, plus an auto renew if I want it. So it's like, buddy, it's a no-brainer, right? I'm like, that's the type of stuff we're looking for when you're looking into getting creative with your landlords. There's always an end. It's just where. Where's
Yep.
the end, and how does everybody win when it comes to leasing?
And everybody can win, and that's the thing, I think, in business in general, it's okay that everybody gets to win. That's when it is good. Not everybody We don't always have to have a win-lose situation where I'm the winner, you're the loser, or vice versa. Everybody can win. Um, Now to pivot a little bit, because I wanna get to this before, we run out of too much time.
Oh, you're
What
good.
um, the hybrid model. So, my opinion, I'm not like the biggest cheerleader of the bin store model in general. We're opening a store. We're doing a series on opening a bin store in 21 days.
Yeah, I've seen the
We
videos.
own the building is the primary reason it's doable, right? So I bought the building. We got a great deal. I want to do some improvements to it. I want to use it in the short term, and then I will lease it out down the road. But we're kind of going back to the old days of like event style bin store. So we're doing a 3-day bin model. Um, but the bins aren't really our primary focus. The bins for me get the crowd, and then we line the store with closeout deals that we're into for, I mean, pennies on the dollar that we're gonna sell at. We've got, for example, I'm sitting on one of these right now. Just to give you a kind of an example, these little polar breezes, right? We've got these in the store. We've got tons of closeout goods where we paid. I mean, I paid nothing for that unit. That was a freebie. Um,
Okay, I think I know we got
got a
those.
crap ton of them. So my goal is to use the bins to get the crowd in the store. and then we'll take advantage of it by selling them the closeouts that we have, really stupid margins on. But I think that's what people nowadays call a hybrid model, where you've got the bins,
Correct.
you've got the product on the
And
shelves. What I think you do, and what I think is probably one of the only profitable ways to run a bin store today, because of the price increase on the product, of like on the high piece count product, and then the risk you run with the model of a bin store. And you touched on it earlier. If I'm a bin store by itself model and I have a really shitty Friday because it rained or it's a holiday or whatever, it's very hard to recoup your loss if you have a crappy weekend. But if you have that hybrid model where you have the product along the edges of your store, your clothing, your shoes, your GM, I don't know what all you guys sell, your furniture, your large appliances. If you have other stuff in your store, you've got the people there. You've spent the advertising dollars, you've created the hype to get them there for your bins. Take advantage of it. Like, put more crap out. People want to spend money. That's what they're there for. So give them more of a reason to spend money in your store. But I believe that's what you do. What do you sell in the store, and how does what I'm curious about is what percentage of revenue of your store comes from your bins, and what percentage of revenue comes from your other product?
so I do the hybrid model 100%. 80% of my store is shelves. About 20% is those bins. But I will tell you, revenue wise, it comes out to almost an even split per store. It comes out to almost an even split every single week. It's because yes, the bins bring in the foot traffic, but the purpose of the bins is they bring in the foot traffic and they pay my payroll. The shelves are my way to bring in profit and to pay the rent to the landlord, right?
Uh-huh.
Is to pay the bills. That's the where the two come in. Now, when it comes to what's on our shelves, there's a big thing. I could talk about hybrid stores for the next 3 hours, by the way, but because I've been doing it since like 2018, it's wild. There's a big thing that people don't talk about, and you kind of touched on it a little bit without even probably realizing you touched on it though. Is everybody talks about diversitizing their selling? Everybody talks about that, right? But nobody talks about diversitizing your buying. There's absolutely zero reason why you need to buy all liquidation. There's absolutely zero reason why you need to buy all closeout. And there's absolutely zero reasons why you can never buy an item wholesale. Zero.
Yeah.
You just have to find the item with the margins that you need to be able to buy it. Like, for example, we sell pocket knives. So for $10 a unit, I buy them for 4. It's a wholesale item, but the MSRP on these pocket knives is $20.
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes no sense not to have them, right? We do that with a lot of different products. When we diversitize our buying, so that way we can have a better mix of stuff on our shelves, right? Do we buy a lot of liquidations? Yes. Do we buy a lot of closeouts? Yes. We do a little bit of both to mix it in. Um, we have contracts with Sam's Club, so we take in a lot of Sam's Club into our shelves. We use them for our clothes. We put them on the shelves. Do all kinds of things with the Sam's Club. But that's a whole different avenue than just buying straight liquidations, right? And then we also work with a lot of closeout people. Like, if I'm thinking right, I'm not going to say it on camera, but if I'm thinking right, the same people you bought that air cooler from, a lot of different these closeout guys to make sure that we're able to bring those different products like ISO pure water or we're
Isopure is hitting the market. Isopure, I got that Isopure has been pushed around a couple times.
Yep, I have it and we're selling it, but the ice of pure water. Then we also have, like for example, a lot of people come into my store looking for cheap headphones, right? Well, we
Yeah.
buy those wholesale off of Century Electronics. We don't buy them on the liquidation market because you get the liquidated item, you have to make sure it works, you have to do all this labor behind it, and I'm like, I can just go buy, from Century a pair of headphones for $6, sell it for 12, double my money, and then reorder it again
Yeah.
constantly, right? And that's where I'm saying at the end of the day is you diversitize your buying along with diversitizing your selling, and you can create a better win for success than you do if you just focus on one avenue. So a question I ask a lot of people is, are you a liquidator or are you a retail store owner with a high focus on liquidation? That question can answer a lot of things on how you need to go. Because if you're a retailer with a high focus on liquidations, then that tells you you don't want to take everything because you
Yeah.
don't need everything, right? If Target decides to get rid of, the best white elephant trophy from their bullseye aisle and they give you 5 million of them and you're not a liquidator, how do you get rid of that item? But you don't.
Yeah.
That's revenue sitting there that could be used for other things. It's crazy. Sam's Club works for the end user like me because it's It's a lot of different SKUs, it's small amounts, and it's never anything crazy, right? But it's costly, it's very costly. But
Yep.
that's what I'm saying is figure out what you are first. When you go into this, figure out what you are, and then figure out how to diversify your buying to fit what you are, and then move from there. Because like everybody in this industry talks about contract holder. I need to be the contract holder. I need to, I need to, I need to. Well, sir, do you really need to? Do you really need to be that contract holder? The
Yeah,
answer
it's more of an
99%.
ego thing, I think, for people with the contract and the direct and the
Oh,
source, and I'm the
it's
best there
it's
is, the ego
it's a
thing. At
hundred
the end of the
percent.
day,
It's a
we're
hundred
all
percent.
recent,
It's a hundred
you know?
percent ego, and it's a hundred
Yeah.
percent control. They want to control and they want to have the ego. They want to walk into a trade show and be like, "Yeah, I'm Amazon's contract holder." Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, "Hey, that's fantastic. That's amazing. Let
Several
me."
people come to mind, and I'm like,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
but I'm like, "That's fantastic, that's great. Now how about we do some business together?" Right? You're taking the risk of having to take 200 loads a month on some of these facilities. I'm sitting here like, "Hey, just give me the 4 or 5 I need a month. Let's move.
Yeah, I'll
Let's
take what I
create that
want, and you
relationship." Right?
100%. I very quickly figured out I did not wanna be the guy that was in charge of or responsible for all of this product flow. We don't really do a lot in the traditional liquidation space anymore anyway with the Amazon and stuff just because for us, I mean, we moved out of the pallet sale and stuff. We, transitioned to a lot of broker deals, and the margins on trucks to broker product anymore is just not there. So our primary focus today for us, inside liquidation is we focus all on closeout. So like we go after brands and retailers going out of business, certain product lines, getting rid of. For us, it's about shrinking our overhead, um, operating lean, and uh, we come across a lot of deals that have a lot higher margin, but we do less of them. So like, brokering's kinda like a bin store. You have to be running a ton of volume to make any money. Where the closeout side, we can do one deal that's worth 20 of, the Amazon brokered loads.
Right.
The days of, like, wanting to be liquidation god at, like, these people, walk around
The
like you said, you kinda painted the picture. You walk around the trade show, I'm the big bad guy with the Amazon contract. Like, it's awesome until, I had a friend of mine, Amazon was really heavy in food about a month back, and they were getting hammered with food loads. I mean, that from facilities that weren't traditionally food heavy. And because you're the contract holder, you got to take it and you got to figure it out. Not only was this heavy in food, it's heavy in expired food. So even though Amazon ended up working with them to kind of rectify it a little bit, you had weeks and weeks of just capital tied up, space tied up with these crap loads that you're responsible for. So,
Yep.
I think the grass is always greener, and I want to be the biggest and best. And I don't really think in liquidation being the biggest and the best of anything is necessarily the best thing when you can
Right.
operate smart and lean, and you can find if you're not contracted out, you have the ability to adapt and to pivot and you go after any, like you said, any and all deals. You don't have to stick in liquidation. There's money in wholesale, there's money in closeouts, there's money in
Yep.
traditional liquidation loads.
Yep.
Don't feel like you have to be like boxed into one
Right.
thing because at the end of the day, we're all
You
just here trying to make money.
right. You can really focus more towards your customer when you don't have liquidations, right? Because it's like there's some liquidation deals that I get that don't make sense with my contracts. Like I got 1,200 units of turkey gravy. Like I don't need 1,200 units of turkey gravy. What the heck? Right.
Yeah.
But when you don't tie yourself down to that one thing and you just make relationships with who has the contract on it, right? So you just make your relationships with whoever has the contract, and then you guys are like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy 4 or 5 truckloads with them, a month or whatever." That contract holder is just gonna be great because you're a great asset for them, right? You make their life easier because you're like, "Yes, send me 4 or 5, that's all I need, blah, blah, blah." And then the great thing is when their facility goes to crap, which every facility does every single year, you can now switch to a different facility. Or if that facility is pushing out the same product week after week after week, you can then go to a different facility and find a different product to keep your customers engaged. But if
Yep.
you take on that contract where it's like, oh my God, all my capital is going just to pay the $300,000 bill with Amazon, good luck. Because once you take on a contract, you are no longer a retailer with a high focus on liquidations. You are now a liquidator. That
Yep.
means you need to hire a sales team to move these items quick enough. You need to find out who's the actual retailer you need and who can you move these products to. Because before you know it, you're going to be backed up and you're going to be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't know I needed 600,000 units of, oh my God, what am I going to do with this load? I just got a bill from Amazon for $200,000. How am I going to pay this overnight and all this inventory sitting in my store? What am I going to do? Right? It's a stress that you don't need if you're in retail. It's a stress
Yeah.
you don't need. Find out what works for your customer, start building your purchasing around it and see what can happen from there, right? So like with our hybrid model, that's what we do. We find out what works and we focus from there. The Sam's Club works really well for our hybrid model, but we also buy a crap ton of closeouts. And then we do a lot of like specialized liquidation lots that, like, maybe if I want Amazon electronics, I'll go buy an Amazon electronic lot. Or if
Yeah.
I want, but I have to pay for it, right? I mean, you're talking 25 to 30% of retail, depending on what's on that lot at this time. Or if I want baby, right? Baby's a very high sought out item because mom and dad always want baby, but they never want to pay full price for it, right? It's hard to get, but if you're willing to pay for it, you can get it. We have a baby aisle in every single one of our stores that we use, and we use Amazon lots to fulfill it. But we're paying 25 to 30% of retail on those lots to make sure that we get them. It's possible to focus in on the inventory by using liquidations, closeouts, and wholesales. You just have to know how. And that's what I'm saying. Anybody who's getting new into this game, don't think you need to be the contract holder. Don't think you need to focus on liquidations. Don't listen to anybody who tells you if you go to a trade show, you need to look at only the liquidation booths and that's it. There's no other deals in the room. Whoever told you that just sets you up for failure because there is other deals in the room. You just
Yep.
have to be willing to go get it. And then you have to, I mean, that's a whole nother series right there is how to land the deal in the room. That's a whole nother series right
Oh,
there. But how to land the deal in the room is how it works, right? A lot of times people, I mean, you've been to ASD before.
yeah.
We were sitting there on the Las Vegas monorail getting ready to go, and this guy goes up to me and my wife at the time, and me and my wife, and starts telling us how he had a horrible experience and how he got kicked out of some guy's booth because he was like he wouldn't let an Amazon seller buy his product and he didn't want it online, blah 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 blah, and they got in an argument right there in the show and floor. I was like, dude, one, you need to learn to accept no. If they
Yeah.
tell you no, move on. It's not a big deal. There's a billion other rooms in there. And two, there's reasons why. Maybe the brand doesn't want it online. Maybe they don't want to compete against themselves. Maybe you're not the buyer they're looking for. There's so many different reasons why. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, I guarantee you, in that situation, you were probably the problem. And you didn't know how to take no for an answer. And you thought that because you're Amazon, everybody's going to want to come to you because you're an Amazon seller. Those days are done. Those
Yeah.
days are long gone. Not everybody's looking to chase after the Amazon seller anymore. I've actually come to find out that more people are chasing the brick and mortar than they are the
Yeah.
Amazon seller because brands don't want to compete against themselves online and they don't want to be undercut. So they're like, "Hey, I want this in store and I don't want it to be sold." Like I just made a deal with for bug spray online. I can't mention who I bought from or anything, but I made a deal for this bug spray and it was strict store only. And I can't even put it online to advertise that I have it. They won't let me. And it's like those
Yeah.
type of deals are what these people are now chasing, the people who can handle those type of deals. They're not chasing the Amazon sellers anymore or anything like that. They're just not. And it's like it's crazy, but you just gotta learn how to win the deal in the room.
Gotta be able to add value to those people. I mean, that's the same thing with the closeouts and that we focus on is, one, we're never afraid of a deal too big. A lot of people, I can take 500, but I can't take 5,000. We'll take 5,000. Oh, well, I have to be able to sell it on Amazon. No, you need to be able to add value to the people that you're working with. The customer is always the easiest person to add value to, in my opinion. Adding value to the customer is by giving them product that under retail. But if you want really good deals, you have to learn how to add value to the people you're liquidating for. And part of that is being able to move the product in a non-traditional way. The bug spray is a perfect example of not only do they not want that sold on eBay, online retailers, they don't even want it promoted. They're trying to protect their brand. And because you can offer that brand protection for them, you're the one that winds up with that deal. I'm sure at a really good price too.
Oh yeah, 100% great price. Um, so that's what I'm saying is you got to understand how to work the deal, right? Whether you're going to buy in case packs or you're going to buy the pallet. The more labor that the person selling the product has to do, the worse of a deal they can give you because they have to do the labor. So if you say, "Look, I'm going to take 6 of these pallets right off the floor. I'm going to buy them by the pallet. All you do is have to pull them off the rack, throw them in the truck, move. I'll handle all the freight. No, barely any labor for you, but I need you to hit me at this rate right here." They're more willing
Yeah.
to do that than if you say, "Oh, I know the case pack is 12, but I only want 3." Well, now you're talking about opening cases, you're talking about breaking cases, you're talking about now having to count the units and keep track of it. It's a lot harder. for them to do it, and they won't be able to give you such a good deal because they have to put more labor towards the product. So, I mean, again, I can go on hours and hours and hours about how to win the deal in the room, how the deal is going to work, and how to approach these people and how to get the deals on your shelf that you need, right? Because those are what's going to drive you to the next level is learning how to work those deals. Because not only do you have to be a good, if you open a bin store or or a hybrid store or whatever, not only do you need to be good at selling the product, but you also need to be good at buying the product also because the money's made on the buy, it's not made on the sell. You
Yeah.
can sell it for whatever cost you want, but if you pay too high for it, you'll never make money at the end of the day. So you have to train yourself in each one of those directions. So that's why I tell anybody before they go into this world, educate your mind first. That education is worth it in $1 million in gold, right? Go to the things like the Liquidation Masterclass by Rich Borgenson, or go to, these trade shows and talk to people, or just call up some people, see if they're willing to give you some advice. Get online to the Facebook groups, start talking to people, and really see what the struggles are. How can you succeed? Why you should and why you shouldn't, and how do you land it? But you need to talk to the right people. Don't talk to the people who have, oh, I've owned a bin store for 3 months, and this is how you should do it. Buddy,
Yeah.
3 months ain't nothing. Let's get 8 years down the road. Let's get 10 years
Yeah.
down the road. Let's get 20 years down the road. You need to talk to the veterans in the group. And I haven't met a single veteran who wouldn't be willing to talk and to help. Not a
Yeah.
single one. Every single one of them's like, "Oh yeah, let's do this," or "Oh yeah, that would be great. That's a good idea," or "Dude, that's a dumb idea," or that like when I go to these shows, I walk around with a group of friends that I've met for 8 years now,
Yeah.
and we go out to dinner. We shoot the shit. We have a lot of fun, and we will bounce deals off of each other because again, the competition isn't always necessarily your enemy, right? Their stores states away, or one of them's hours away, one of them states away. So I don't care, but they may have a deal that's sitting on their plate, and they're like, "I can't handle all these units, but if we split it between the three, us three
Exactly.
can handle all the units, and then we can control that item, and then we can have it in our stores at a rate that's actually reasonable, right?
Yeah.
We can control the units at that point." Your competition isn't always your enemy. Your competition could be your best friend because we sell to other smaller bin stores in our area. One of them's 40 minutes from me that we sell to, right? Because they can't take the full truckload. They can't take even half a truckload. They need a couple pallets a week, whatever. They want some closeout deals, whatever. So I bring them in and I sell them to them, make a little bit of money, and it helps me bring in a bigger unit count, right? Um, I got Jelby guns about 3, 4 months ago at this point, and I had a lot of units on it. And they're like, "Hey, we're just looking for something unique to put on our shelves." I was like, "Well, I got Jelby guns, dude." I sold them
Yeah.
for $1 above my cost, sold them probably 30, 40 units, and moved on, right? You don't have to be worried about that. 'Cause then it clears up shelf space, it moves that product faster, and it helps me bring in more numbers, which helps me get these people more down to understanding what bin mania is, and then I can bring them value by moving some product for them. So, there's different ways to look at it. There's a lot of different ways to win the deal. You have to be creative and figure out where's the win.
Creativity is definitely a theme I think we've talked about the whole conversation, when it comes to the landlords, it comes to deals, you hit it on the head. We're There's competition in this industry, but it's really not, I mean, unless someone opens up across the street, even when they open up across the street, there's so much money to be made in this industry that the people that are so concerned about you're my competition or you're going to take food out of my off my plate, those are the people you want to stay away from. They're so concerned about there's you and your business, you don't have to be. I mean, we probably, we talk to a ton of people, and the more you can collaborate with other people, the more money you tend to make. There's so many deals that are very large in this industry, and one guy, it's hard to take them. You need to be able to spread them out across people. And those people, technically, I guess, are your competition in some sort of way, but they don't have to. You don't have to look at them that way. Look at people as most people want to be helpful, and the ones that don't, you got to ask yourself why. The people that are greedy in this industry, they come out, it's very obvious to the group. I mean, like you
Right,
said, anybody that's been in this industry long enough is always willing to help because there's so many
right,
potholes to fall into. There's so many traps to, you fall into scams, wrong turns. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Most people that have been in here long will be willing to help. Because it's hard to get people to talk, first of all. So I appreciate you coming on and talking with us. It's hard to get people to do that, and I try to like my spiel is I'll only take up 30 minutes of your time. And, obviously ours has run over. And I think there's opportunity down the road for us to to do this again, especially I love where we were headed with closing deals in the room, and I think I would love to get your opinion more on that and go a little bit deeper because
Yeah,
I think that's something people need to learn is
yeah,
when to shut up and when to talk and how to get things closed. Because 'cause you're right, sometimes you get so upset, and I see people that are just getting started, they're so upset with someone, "Oh, you're not gonna sell to me." You don't worry, 1, don't worry about deals like that because if they
yeah.
don't wanna sell to you, just move on to the next one, you're
Right.
absolutely
What's
correct.
well, you also
Learn
have to educate
from
yourself on what's the why they don't wanna sell to you, what's the reasoning. It's most likely not you personally, it's just
Yeah,
this doesn't work. This doesn't work, and you gotta keep your emotions out of everything. You gotta you hit them with straight facts. Nothing
yeah,
but facts upon facts upon facts. Anything above that or below anything that once you start getting your emotions in, you lost the deal right then and there.
yeah,
You lost. You don't do it. It's like, dude, come on. I mean, and there's been times where I've literally looked at people and I'm like, "Your product looks like it belongs in Dollar Tree, dude. So I need to get it to where I can sell it at a Dollar Tree price. I
yeah.
can't
Well,
be
we're only at
paying."
half the Dollar Tree price because 'cause we're discount.
Right. I'm like, "I can't be paying you Macy's price for a Dollar Tree product. Let's get real on the numbers here and let's work. It's a great product, but the packaging just doesn't look great to the customer, so we need to get real." And a lot of
100%.
times 90% of them actually agree with me, like, "Yeah, you're right. Dude, it does look like that. Let's make a deal." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go." Because you're asking $5 for an item that I'm probably only gonna be able to sell for 5. And you
Yeah,
know what? And if they tell you, "Oh, we just can't do any better," or they don't like you for it, so be
yeah.
it. There's 40 other,
It's
50
a
other,
fun
60 other
and
them out
sometimes
there.
you throw the offer and it's a low ball offer. I can't tell you how many times the last 6 months where I've some people I it's an insulting offer to some people. Like, "Sorry, but that's what it's worth to me." They tell me to go F off, and 4 months later, I'm getting a phone call going, "Hey, is that offer still good?" And
Right.
then
I actually had a recent one like that. I'm actually putting it on my LinkedIn. Guy offered me deodorant for $1.50 a stick. I'm looking at the deodorant, I'm like, I know I recognize that brand from somewhere. It's another thing. Research your brands, walk your competitors. Well, not your competitors, but your major retailers know what they're selling. But I was offered this at $1.50 a unit, found out I sold it at Dollar Tree for $1.25 a unit. And I was like, this ain't a deal, dude.
yeah,
Where's the deal? So I offered them 30 cents a unit. They told me, no, lowest we can go is 75 cents a unit. I said, dude, that's not a deal. For a $1.25 product, you're offering me at 75 cents. No.
yeah,
So I passed up on it. And then I get an email 2 weeks later, or no, it's about a month later saying, we'll do 30 cents a unit. And I'm like, I don't want it now.
no.
I mean, dude, that offer was a month ago.
Yeah,
Where we
now
at?
now it's 20 cents, buddy,
Yeah.
sorry. And they
You
get
have
even more pissed, but they usually still take it. No.
Yeah, and it happens, but I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not trying to insult anybody with my offers. I'm just trying to be realistic. This is
Yeah,
what I can sell it at. This is where I'm at." Because if I had it's $1.25 at Dollar Tree, I'm probably gonna be selling it for 75 cents
yeah,
to my customer. And it's like, come on, man. We gotta get realistic and we gotta work together on this. And this is what I actually asked one guy this years and years and years ago. He's well, it wasn't even years ago. I guess it was like two years ago. He's He's been in closeouts for many, many, many years. But I asked him one simple question. I said, how do I get these suppliers to understand that I'm the guy they need to invest in and not the one time buy, right? And the answer was pretty much revenue share. Be open with your numbers. Show them that you can move the product for them. Start taking bigger risk, and you will see that these people will take bigger risk on you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I started doing that. I stopped worrying so much about, every little tiny detail and I started taking bigger risk. And now these people are sending me better deals and asking me for more things. Like I get offers all the time from different people who are like, "Hey, we just had a canceled order. Can you take this stuff out of our hair immediately?
yeah,
We'll give you free shipping. We'll take X amount off of our original price. Does this land a deal? Where do you need to be at for this to happen? We need it out of a warehouse tomorrow." And I'm like, this is where I need to be at. 99% of the time they take it because like we just need to get rid of it. But they know I'm the guy now, right? And they're starting to get better deals for me because they understand that if the deal's right, I'm buying. And now they're starting to learn me more. And they're like, our margins may be lower than him, but he's going to consistently buy. It's not like I'm just selling him, this item for a very low margin on our end, and then he never comes back. It's like all of a sudden now he's coming back and he's buying, 100 of this unit or not 100, but like 1,000 of this unit
yeah,
or 900 of this unit or 800 of this unit. And it's like, well, why didn't he do that 6 months ago? Actually, one of my sales rep out of me asked me, he's like, why weren't you buying like this 6 months ago? And I just looked at him, I was like, because you're too high. Your
yeah,
deals made no sense 6 months ago. Now they're starting to make sense. Now I can buy them.
yeah,
Once you get to that point, now we can do some serious business. Let's start talking doing $1 million+ a year in business once you start hitting that. But when you're trying to get me a 50, 60% of retail on something, I'm not gonna buy it. I don't care what the item is. Unless you're sending me PlayStation 5s at 50% of retail, I'm
Yeah,
not buying it. It
it's
doesn't
not.
make sense. Nobody's going to, if anybody's buying at 50% of retail, that's why you're losing money.
Yeah,
Why are you buying at 50% of retail when you're going to sell it for 55 or 60% of retail? If you're lucky, you might get 70 out of it. Your margin's not there, dude. You're going to kill yourself. Why are you doing this? Move on. Don't
you
do
gotta
it.
watch it. You gotta watch
Worst
your
thing you can
margins.
do. But
Um,
I know you have other people to do it. But yeah,
Before we close out, it's like the wrap up question. Our focus today was bin stores, and we got off on some tangents that again we're gonna circle back 100% and have you back on again because I see a lot of value in some more conversations, not just for me but for the people watching. But to wrap up, to get back on our topic before we close out, advice for potential bin store openers in 2026. So I'm thinking about opening a bin store in 2026. Would you still do it? And if so, what is your advice? If not, what would you have me open instead?
I would 100% still do it, but I wouldn't do it without education. Invest the money into.
Have capital to be able to purchase multiple weeks ahead. That's a big thing. I get so many calls 2 days before. I'm supposed to open on Friday. I don't have any stuff. Be able to afford 2 or 3 loads ahead, and that way you don't have to make mistakes. Education and capital. I'm literally writing that down for our clips later. And I also wrote down right and wrong ways to do a hybrid store because I do want to circle back down the road and revisit that. I think that's really helpful to people. And I think that's the model that people should be looking at for the future as prices continue to rise.